Well, thanks for being here, guys. It's our first podcast, first Project Connect since COVID. So super happy to have you here. I'm going to talk a lot about hunger in San Diego, specifically with families, children, seniors. You guys obviously deal with this every day of your lives, playing a big role in attacking that issue and making a difference. Casey Castillo, Vanessa Ruiz here with the San Diego Food Bank. I won't try to describe exactly who you are and what you do every day. So you're here and you have a mic. So why don't we start out that way? Why don't you kind of introduce yourselves and share kind of a little bit of a background of who you are, what you do at the food bank, but also kind of the why, right? Yeah. Like what brought you here and in this role, and share a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Great. Well, we are happy to be here. Thank you, Josh. What's COVID? No, we appreciate any opportunity we have to come and talk about the San Diego Food Bank, the impact we have on the community, and we want people to know about us so they can get help if they need it. As you mentioned, I'm Casey Castillo. I'm CEO, interim CEO right now, but I have been CFO over 13 years. So Vanessa and I worked a long time together. We enjoy each other. And we enjoy it mostly because we work for a great cause, great mission. We do have a great impact on the community, and it's easy to wake up in the morning knowing you're going to go to work and help feed people.
Awesome. Very cool.
How do you top
Vanessa.
that? Vanessa Ruiz. I'm the VP of Programs and Operations at the Food Bank. As Casey mentioned, I've been there quite a while. I'm going on my 18th year this November. The Food Bank, it is near and dear to my heart. There are a lot of special things about the organization. Definitely the mission to alleviate and end hunger in San Diego. That's our end goal. But being able to work with not only volunteers and our donors, but also with our partners. So we do have over 500 nonprofit food pantries and soup kitchens throughout all of San Diego County. And we also serve a little part of Imperial County. And that makes it fun for us because we're not in it alone. We're doing this with our partners.
Awesome. Yeah, so we had, as I shared before we started the filming, we had the opportunity to come down and do a tour, and you led that, Vanessa. You knocked it out of the park. Good job. But almost overwhelming. Super impressive, just the volume of food, and then learning that it almost gets in there and out of there as quickly as it gets in there.
Right.
Yeah. Which is, an illustration of just how big of an issue this is and how many people need help. But taking it back from where it is today, can you share a little bit about where the food bank started, how this whole thing got going? You guys have been there a long time. I imagine when you first got there, it wasn't quite the machine that it is today. So maybe you can kind of fill in the gaps there, because I'm curious about that. I see what you do today, and we've done some volunteering, some of us from here, and went to the senior distribution down in San Ysidro, and really a cool experience.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can get that unless you actually roll up your sleeves and do it. So we were honored to do that, and it was great for us. But it was very well-oiled, very systematic, and I imagine it hasn't always been that way where you guys just had it figured out. So maybe take us back in time on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a great history. Vanessa's been there for a lot of the food bank history, and she's still only 20 years old. I don't know how that works. So Food Bank started in 1977. We were under another nonprofit for quite a while. We separated in 2006, became our own 501c3, and that's really where we saw growth in the organization. I came on in 2008. We have grown in almost every way every year since then, and obviously last year with COVID, we saw a substantial increase. But we are serving now, at this moment, a little over 500,000 people per month.
Wow.
I think when I first started in 2008, we were around 200,000. That was during the Great Recession, and so we saw some lag in recovery, and those numbers started to pick up and have steadily increased. And then again, last year with COVID, we saw a substantial increase. 1977, we've been here a while, serving the community. We've been doing it at a much larger pace in the last couple of years.
Right. And about COVID, what have you guys seen in terms of the need, how you guys have had to adapt and adjust and, all that during this pandemic? Because obviously every business has.
Yeah.
But with you guys in particular, there's a lot of goods exchanging hands and volunteers and employees and, benefactors of all this.
So pre-COVID, we were serving 350,000 people per month. That ballooned within weeks to 600,000.
Wow.
We've seen a little bit of a downtick to, I think we're at 550,000 right now.
Yep.
It's kind of leveled off there, but that's still a substantial increase from 350,000. And since mid-March, from the shutdown, we've distributed over 80 million pounds of food. So we've gone into overdrive. Last year, we distributed 63 million pounds of food. That was up 20 million pounds, so almost a 50% increase from the year before. So we responded. We ramped up pretty quickly and responded well to COVID, but there's still more need out there, Josh.
I think in addition to what we were seeing at the food bank level, we were seeing that our food partners were also seeing just rapid numbers increase. They were seeing lines out the door. We had to start a program called the Super Pantry Program. And the purpose of that program was to elevate the partnerships that we had with around 30 to 40 of our partners to that of opening up more hours during the week, more days during the week to be available to those families who, they just didn't know where to go. They didn't know what locations were going to be open before, after work. And so with the Super Pantry program, we started it July of 2020, and we were able to help build the capacity of those partners and helping them. And help means a lot for these agencies. For us, it meant some of them needed racking, some of them needed some vans, some of them needed just to keep their doors open, more food. A lot of them had to go outdoors to do a drive-through model as opposed to a walk-in, and that requires traffic cones and tents and masks, PPE. It really ranged by pantry to pantry what exactly their needs were, and that program has continued since the July 2020 start. It's really been important for us.
That's a great point. So Vanessa mentioned we partner with over 500 nonprofits throughout the county. And these are all nonprofits that have feeding programs. And most of them primarily get most of their food from us. So they come to our warehouse, they shop, they take their food back to their pantry, to their senior care center or daycare, things like that, small church pantries, all the way to your biggest soup kitchens, right? They come and get food from us. We understood that the food supply chain would be disrupted, and we worried about our nonprofits. So almost immediately we determined, okay, there might be a bottleneck here. They're going to need some support. So over the past 18 months, we've distributed, I think, almost $2 million in grants, capacity grants to these nonprofits. Vanessa mentioned it. We're helping them with refrigeration, with forklifts, with cones, with tents, anything they need to distribute more food.
Wow.
So it's been a wonderful program. Vanessa mentioned our Super Pantry program. So we basically supersized that program and said, who's capable of these agencies and who wants to do this? To distribute more food, to be open longer,
Got it.
More hours, more days. And instead of doing these mass distributions where we show up at Qualcomm and 1,000 cars get in line, how about we get food out to these community neighborhoods and people can come to the food where it's closest to them. And we had great success.
Yep.
As Vanessa mentioned, we're still doing it.
That's awesome. I imagine some people have mobility issues, right? Getting to a large site like a Qualcomm, so it might deter them from getting it. So the closer it is to their community.
What if you don't have a car?
Yeah,
what are you
exactly.
going to do?
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, so we want them in their neighborhoods, right? Again, there's over 500. I think we're approaching 600. So throughout the county, there's
600 super pantries.
Oh no, 600
Partners.
nonprofits.
Oh, I was going to say, wow,
But,
man.
but all of these partners are
Wow,
open to
I
the
was gonna
community,
say,
right? And so we want you walking down the street to your church pantry or to a soup kitchen.
Got it.
Somewhere that's closer to them, right?
And when you saw those distributions at Qualcomm, we did about 4 large mass distributions in that March 2020, April 2020 time period. It was Qualcomm, Del Mar Fair. At that point, it was like, where are the biggest parking lots in San Diego? And let's
Right.
try to hit every region. And so we went to Grossmont Center in La Mesa, we went to Southwestern College in Chula Vista with the idea of just sharing with folks how to access food. Because for many, this was their very first time getting food assistance. They had no idea what website to go to.
Yeah.
So that was our initial reason for starting these out at these locations and then redirecting them, as Casey said, to their nearest food pantries.
And we were happy to do them. I mean, this was at the height of the pandemic. People were hungry. They needed food. So we were happy to get out there and get that food to them any way we could. But we found out quickly they're logistical nightmares, right? Is the parking lot big enough, right? Let's bring the police station in because they're going to need to direct traffic. What happens if 2,000 cars show up and not 1,000? Very difficult to plan for. So that's where we thought, there's a more dignified way that we could do this. Let's get food out to the community resources that are already there.
Right.
And one of the things that we found, and I think was probably the model of our super pantries, we have a warehouse in Vista. So 40,000 square foot warehouse we're operating out of. And we have a client choice pantry there, which means people in their community can come to that food bank and they can shop, right? Dignified way to do that. Well, at the height of the pandemic, we started seeing more and more people, so we moved that to the parking lot out front, using volunteers and our staff, and made a drive-through. And what we found pretty quickly is we had 200, 250 cars coming through during the day, 8 hours, right? But they would come by, we could manage that. We had food there, and we thought, okay, if this works here, let's look at this across the county, and that's really where super pantries came from. Let's supersize some of our nonprofits and help them with the ability to do these drive-throughs or these client choice so more people can come to them.
Yeah, when we did the one in San Ysidro for the senior distribution, it was a drive-through.
Yeah.
It was well coordinated.
It works well.
I mean, I was impressed because you could look around and see there's been probably a lot of learning that's happened from when it started to now, because there's little things, right? And everyone was very nice and, very good. Great people, great event. And really cool to be involved in.
Did you get a workout from moving those 30-pound boxes?
Yeah,
right?
a little bit. Well, I'll tell you what I was very impressed by was the quality of food.
Yeah.
And it called me ignorant, you know what I mean? But I would have thought it would have been less quality when it came to the food. I mean, there was every fruit, vegetables, almost like reading a nutrition book where it was like, hey, get a couple berries in, a couple green leaf, vegetables, a tomato here or whatever. I mean, it was very well-rounded, great food.
I don't think we have time. Vanessa could probably take us through our nutrition policy, which is pretty substantial. But back to the lockdown. We knew pretty quickly, and I mentioned this earlier, that the supply chain would be disrupted. And so we put in millions of dollars of food orders, right? And we wanted high quality food to come in. And so even though we knew there would be a delay in food, we put those orders in first, hoping we would be up top. And that worked out well for us, but we bought a lot of good quality food. I think from March of that year, we've spent over $16 million in food purchases.
Wow.
And just to give you some context, a normal year we'll spend 1 to 2.
Wow.
And that went from 1 to 2 to 14, 15, 16 million pretty quickly.
Wow. So these super pantries, let me see if I understand it correctly. So prior to all of this, it would be more so they would come to your main warehouse and get all the supplies, all the food, bring it back to where they were. But now, like, you've kind of supersized their location, where now, like, that food, do they still come and get it, or do you guys deliver it with trucks or something?
It's both. They come to our warehouse and they still get food. We deliver as well, but it was probably less frequent. So some of these distributions were probably open once a month, twice a month, maybe once a week at most.
Right.
And now they're open minimum 3 days a week, minimum 9 hours a week. So it elevated them, to a greater scale. And yes, they get deliveries from us on a regular basis, but sometimes they need more, or maybe there's specific diets that they're looking for to supplement. And so they come in and they look for what products they need for their pantry, for their community.
Gotcha.
Do you know where that number is now? I think we
40.
work through the super pantry?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we just got to 40.
Wow.
Okay, 40 super pantries,
40
but the
sites.
number of pounds we've distributed, I thought it was something like 15 million
now
just
it's,
through our super pantries.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then earlier you mentioned the mobility of folks, who was able to really attend the distributions. At the very height of COVID, there were restrictions on who should and shouldn't be able to kind of get out, and who it's who should be a little bit more cautious. And of course, you all remember that seniors were asked to stay home. Stay-at-home orders actually lasted longer for seniors than any other population. And so very early on, I believe it was the last week of March, we were contacted by Team Rubicon. And they said, look, we normally deploy during a disaster, and we're here. We want to help. What can we do for you guys? And immediately we thought of our senior population. You all came out to one of our senior distributions distributions, and to see a senior go without that 30-pound box of food that they highly depend on is difficult. And so what we did is we partnered with Team Rubicon for a few months, actually, and we made phone calls and said, if you are unable to attend a food distribution because you have no one to come on your behalf to pick up that box, we are going to send a Team Rubicon volunteer to come to your doorstep and bring that box to you. So for 3 months while the seniors were on lockdown, we had those volunteers out every single day in those Team Rubicon vans delivering those 30-pound boxes. Now, it may not seem like a lot, but to a senior who in San Diego is living on a $900 a month Social Security check, that with their rent, their utilities, their medical expenses, it doesn't leave them with a lot for food. And so this box really meant a lot. We were able to bring out to them additional supplemental items like produce to really give them a substantial amount and hopefully bring down the costs that they had on those food expenses.
Yeah, thank you to Team Rubicon. So this is an organization with current and former military personnel, right?
Okay.
That volunteers their time. And so they contacted us and said, how can we help? Can we come and volunteer? Are you losing volunteers? And we initially thought about that, and then we're like, wait, there's another way that we can use you. And they jumped in. They started making calls daily. They were calling thousands of seniors. We document who's come into our distributions of seniors, right? We track that information. And so we would see when seniors wouldn't come. And so that was their list. They started making those calls. Seniors said, yes, I don't have anybody that can do that in my stead. And so they would drive that box out to them. I think something like 3,000 boxes that we did in that time period. So 3,000 seniors that were fed.
That's incredible. What a great story of how everyone can collaborate and come together around something that, needs to be done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
That's awesome. I haven't heard of that group.
Yeah, they're a really great group. The people that came out, they said, this job is so much easier than what we typically do, and they were talking about being out in during the aftermath of a hurricane or a fire or a tornado, and I'm just like, wow, it's amazing what these individuals were doing out, just to support the families and the communities that were affected by these disasters, and so we truly appreciated working with them and have continued to work with them in different projects since then. They're still good friends of ours.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
If you ever need muscle around the warehouse,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Sounds like
Yeah,
ex-military
nice.
Muscle
firefighters. I'm
brains.
sure they're not in any kind of good shape to be helping
Exactly.
out.
We put them right in the middle of our conference center and said, okay, go
Take
for
it.
it. Do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So along those same lines with the seniors who maybe had some issues getting to the food, I shared with you my background in education.
Yeah.
And when I taught at a 90-90-90 school, which is 90% below the poverty level, 90% free and reduced lunch, 90% English language learners. So we definitely had some assistance programs that were there, and it was really important to these families and kids.
Yeah.
With the schools getting shut down during COVID, did that create an issue for a lot of these kids getting some of the things that they needed?
It did, because we have, I think Vanessa probably will want to talk about this program. We have a wonderful program for the children, across the county. You want to talk a little about our backpack program?
Our Food for Kids program has been in place since 2006, and mostly over the last 5 years has just grown steadily. So our Food for Kids program, the background behind that is we were speaking to Title I schools throughout San Diego County and listening to teachers and nurses, superintendents tell us that there are kids that still, till this day, are coming to school Monday morning with tummy aches, unable to really learn and pay attention in the classroom because they didn't have food to eat over the weekend. And so for us, that was just a shocker. We knew that we had to do something about that. The school system is great, and the nutrition services departments at all the school districts are amazing. They put out 3 meals, with their breakfast, their lunch, and some of them do after school snack, after school supper. I mean, it's amazing. But on the weekends, those programs don't exist. And so we decided to come up with the Food for Kids backpack program and work with the school districts and the schools that had the highest need to identify the students within those schools who were chronically hungry. And we gave a definition of chronically hungry and examples of what that meant. So this wasn't meant for all students who were on the free and reduced Students Lunch Program. This was meant for the top students, those top students that, again, the nurses and the cafeteria service workers are either coming in rushing, quickly can't wait. They couldn't get it soon enough, or even coming back and asking for seconds, which happens a lot as well. And so with that program, it's been in existence since 2006. We were at 53 schools. We had over 3,600 students on the program getting that food every single week, and then COVID hits. Right. And we weren't quite done with the school year yet, but we had to quickly pivot. And so what we did is we started working with these school districts and said, how can we help? Immediately, we gave them the rest of the food that we had for Food for Kids that was earmarked for the remainder of the school year. That was number one. And we just said, distribute this through your drive-thrus. They all went to drive-thru as well, to make sure that those kids and the families were getting food. But in addition to that, we added a second layer of partnership where we were providing additional groceries. So we were the $16 million worth of food that Casey mentions. We bought everything. I mean, any peanut butter, tuna, chicken. We bought pasta, and we were taking that product out to our distributions with the kids and the families, and supporting the service workers and county members who were helping to distribute that food, and just giving them a little bit extra, a little supplement to really support, because we knew that now the kids are at home. And that requires more meals. Now you have to provide breakfast and lunch and in between snacks, and so our moms and dads and parent guardians are also at home, because some of them were asked to stay home and not work and work remotely now. So we knew that the expenses were going up and decided to supplement with that program. So that's how the Food for Kids program has gone. This year, we are about to ramp it up again, but instead of our typical Food for Kids menu, which is about 10 or 12 different items that are small, kid-sized, kid-friendly, easy to open packages, what we decided instead was to give them a more robust menu this year. And so they're getting what we call a family pack menu, and it just includes family-style meals. We would typically do this once a month with the previous menu, but now the entire menu for the next school year is going to be all family pack. And the kids, we've heard some really amazing stories from the teachers that talk to the children on a regular basis. And they said, when the kids go home and they're bringing groceries home, it's as if they're participating in supporting the family through whatever it is that they're going through. And they don't know the details, but to them, they're here, Mom and Dad, here, Grandma, here's the bag of food that I got from school today. And so that it really means a lot to them.
We read the letters from the kids, which are they'll bring a tear to your eye. I mean, they're very compelling. And I think the thing that you get from a lot of those thank you letters is they're always grateful that they can feed their siblings. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. So what Vanessa's mentioned, they're taking food home. They are helping the family, and that's how they see it. And Vanessa's right. Well done. That so we didn't pause or slow down any program during COVID. If anything, we expanded them all. And we did that with the backpack program. Actually, before Vanessa and I headed over here, we were looking at new funding for the backpack program to bring on a couple hundred more students. So we're always looking to do that. I think we're in 67 schools right now and 14 school districts throughout the county, and that number will continue to increase. We'll keep working on that.
Yeah, that's pretty near and dear to my heart. I think those types of programs that you guys do really kind of got us super inspired on getting involved. I mean, we were already there, but partnering with you guys and knowing that you're doing that in the schools. And obviously my background coming from education, making the choice to leap into business, you kind of leave something behind a little bit and say like, man, all these kids that you were close to and you gotta, Well, and you probably saw it. I mean, just think about that child that's hungry over the weekend. And Vanessa mentions they come back with a stomach ache. I mean, this is when they're developing. They are not performing well if they're hungry. And so that food over the weekend, we hear from principals, from teachers, that their grades are improving, they're reading better, all these things that are going to be wonderful consequences and benefits to them in their life, right, in the future. So absolutely, we love being a part of that. No, it's big, and speaking from firsthand experience being in the classroom is, first of all, my experience was the same kids that had a hard time getting enough food, probably had some other stuff going on in the home setting as well, right? Not 100% of the time. It's kind of anecdotal.
Other challenges to poverty,
right?
Yes.
And if you're coming to school and you don't know how you're going to get your next meal, or whether mom or dad will be home tonight, or whether maybe one of your siblings is involved in some questionable activity and they're going to bring their friends over and it's not going to be safe. You really don't care a whole lot about whether you can multiply fractions or who settled the first, Presidio in California. I mean, that's just the reality. So it's a big deal. I mean, and so for these kids to kind of elevate out of certain circumstances that maybe don't give them the best shot to succeed, having a full stomach and then you talk about the physical side, right? Obviously, like you don't think as well, act as well, make great decisions if you're operating without that nutrition. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a really good point. One of the greatest things about the food bank is that there is no judgment being passed here, regardless of why folks need to access our services. That doesn't matter for us. And so with our Food for Kids program, it's part of a greater initiative, our Diaper to Degree initiative. I know I probably talked a little bit about this when we did our tour, but we're helping from beginning to end, really. And with our Diaper to Degree initiative, it encompasses our diaper program, which we are the national, at least regional here in San Diego, diaper hub. And so in our Vista facility, we have our diapers that go out to over 100 different nonprofit pantries. And so that's the start of our Diaper to Degree initiative. But then following that, we have, like we mentioned, our Food for Kids program. Our Food for Kids program is unique in that the school-age children in elementary, they're fine with putting a bag of food into a backpack and walking off and no issues with that. But you can't do that with the middle and high school.
Yeah, I can see that.
It changes a little bit. There's a little bit of a stigma involved. Some of them don't even use backpacks. And so with that one, we created an on-the-go program, and our on-the-go is for middle and high school students, and we've basically put an on-site pantry so that if there is a need and they find themselves in the middle of class and needing to get an extra granola bar or yogurt, that they can go to the local pantry and pick up those items. They can also take some to go if they need to take it home. So it's a little bit more discreet, and very similar to that, then we move to our college pantry.
I was going to ask about that.
Our college hunger relief program, very similar situation, and we now work with every college and university in San Diego County. We partner with them in one way, shape, or form, whether it be best practices, providing food, and we've also provided capacity grants to these organizations to be able to either start up or continue on with their existing programs, because we know as college students it's very difficult to keep up with everything that's going on. There's not a lot of money for food, and so to have an on-site food pantry that is easily accessible, that's filled with nutritious food items like what you saw at our senior distribution, that's huge for a lot of these students, and it's one less thing that they need to worry about. So our Diaper to Degree program, it really does encompass every way that we can help, from infancy all the way to college. And then outside of that program, of course, you see our senior program, and then also our emergency food assistance program, where folks can, just go out and visit their local pantry and get food as often as they need it. And that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I think the transparent or very clear objective for you guys of maintaining dignity and avoiding those types of situations, it's obvious, like throughout everything you do. And I love how, it's no longer, some things, food stamps are now CalFresh and all these kinds of things where it's no one wants to, be labeled with those things, and there's nothing to be ashamed about. We all have tough times, what I mean, and need a hand. But that's pretty obvious by what you guys do and how you handle your programs, and I think that's really cool.
That is our focus. Thank you. Vanessa mentioned our diaper program and being a regional diaper bank. So we're one of 3 throughout the state of California. We're proud of that. I think we have been distributing over 500,000 diapers a month for the last several years. So that's we're very proud of that, and it's a program we're also looking to grow. We'll keep at it.
And it's a staple. Diapers are not paid for. You mentioned the CalFresh program, and that's for food. And so when diapers are so expensive, and there's so many studies that show that there are health implications when a child is left in diapers for too long, and if now your child is at the hospital, and now you have to take time off of work. I mean, that cycle it's like a domino effect. And so if we could do something as small as providing diapers for free to families who are in need, I mean, that means so much more to these individuals.
Well, so think about it, we're trying to, unemployment's a problem. We see that's adding to the food insecurity. But for those families, and we serve the working poor, but for those families that have jobs, if two parents have a child, an infant, and that infant's in daycare, they require that you bring diapers, right? And if you can't do that, guess what? One of those parents is staying home. They're home, they're not working. And so we think this is a huge benefit to families throughout San Diego County, and we're going to keep pushing this program.
Was that like something that you guys got in a room and said, let's do the diaper thing, or was it kind of an unintended?
Well,
it actually was. It was in an office. Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher was a huge proponent, continues to be a huge proponent of our Diaper to Degree initiative, and with diapers, she did come to the food bank one day and said, there isn't a diaper bank in San Diego, and there should be a diaper bank in San Diego. And we said, okay, well, what will that entail? And when we dug into it, it really meant adding one more item to our existing supply chain. We already had the warehouse, we already had the trucks, we had the infrastructure, we had the partners who would be able to take it and distribute it to the families. So we said, let's try this. And so that's where it started, and it grew rapidly from there. And she does a diaper drive every holiday season and collects diapers from the labor union groups and other volunteers, and that just continues to keep our program operating, as well as outside funding.
But Josh, as your local food bank, we do that. We sit in a room and we talk about, so what need is out there, what can we do?
I imagine.
We throw it up on the whiteboard, and if it sticks, we say, let's do it. And that we were talking about that program, and we happened to have that opportunity, and we jumped at it.
The bureaucracy is very low. If the idea is good, it happens.
Yeah, the two of us decide. Let's do it.
It comes down to a vote.
Yeah. Well, we're missing.
Hopefully, there's not a tie, because even numbers.
Yeah, we're missing another VP here. It's Chris Carter.
Yeah,
and there's usually the three of us.
He's
been great, by the way, too.
Yeah.
I mean, you all have,
amazing.
but he's been so responsive, and I will say, and this is not to slide any other organization's fault, but we were looking for a partner to donate our financial support, our volunteer time, and you guys were so responsive. Chris was great, right on it, scheduled us for the tour, and other organizations weren't there, and maybe they have a different model, but you guys are doing a great job, and I'm certainly grateful for that. So,
well, we'll let them know this is recorded, so it's on tape.
How much did he pay you to say that?
Exactly.
Oh, darn it, we were getting a hard time.
Yeah, the diaper thing I think is cool too, because you said it earlier about just being informed, people who need this, and knowing that it's available. So if you get people in there when their kids are babies and they need diapers, and then you say, well, hey, we have food as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just gets them in the loop that much sooner to these kids, because again, that's our passion linked to this is the kids and, students and babies and, families and helping them out.
Yeah. So that's why we wanted to partner our diaper hub sites with our food pantries. We didn't go out and just look for sites that were daycares and only were looking to provide diapers. For us, it's a matter of how can you have a wraparound service? How can we limit the amount of times that an individual has to go from place to place to place just to get all of their needs met? So that's exactly why we partner with our existing food pantries.
Absolutely, and it's part of our mission, right? I mean, we are advocating for the hungry, but we're also educating the public about hunger-related issues, and this is a related issue.
Yeah. So if you were, because hopefully this message gets out and people hear it that need to hear it, what would your advice be to somebody who is struggling with hunger in their community? Obviously you have a website, which has a ton of information on it. But other than that, what would be your advice to people like that might hear this?
Well, we'd have them start there, the website, and they can click on the Get Help. That'll give them a lot of information. We have this great locator map that you can find on our website. You just put in your zip code, and it'll pull up every close food pantry or food distribution location. So, and most of the time, you're going to find something within a mile of where you live. And so start there. If you still need help, call us. We're always happy to talk on the phone. And then I think the last resource I'd mention, and Vanessa may have a few more, is call 211. 211 is a great resource. Just pick up the phone, dial 211. 211 has all of our information. Every distribution we have, every nonprofit partner we work with, they have all of that. So they could do the same thing with 211. They can tell them where they live, and 211 not only going to give them other resources they should be considering, but we'll tell them where the San Diego Food Bank can help them.
Yeah. I would say the only thing to add is it's clear by what Casey mentioned that the resources are there. And you just need a little bit of help on guidance, right? But for the folks that the folks who need help but are embarrassed or don't know that maybe that there's food for everyone, I think it's important for folks to understand that we are here for a reason. We are here to help everyone, and we've all gone through difficult times. My family was on food stamps when I was growing up for a few years, and they were able to move past that and eventually buy a house and make a good life for myself and my brother and our family. Everyone goes through difficult situations, and I think it's important for families to know and recognize that the reason the food bank exists is because we don't want anyone to go without. And we have plenty of food. I think that that's a stigma that some people think, well, someone else needs it more than I do. That's what we're here for. Come once, come twice. The whole idea behind us being out and visible and having media out at some of those big distributions was to show everyone that we're here, to show everyone that the vehicles, I talk about this so much that inadvertently when we were doing these distributions, you would see all kinds of vehicles, all makes and models, everything from motorhomes to, maybe a newer vehicle within the last 2 years. And I think what that did is it showed people that regardless of where you are in your life, you may need food assistance at some point, and you should come, and we're here for you. We saw a lot of folks who lost their jobs, and the car they had was the car they had before their job loss, before they knew that they were going to be in the situation that they were in. Right. Maybe the car was paid off. Maybe they borrowed the car. We don't pass judgment. I say that again because it's such an important part of who we are. We try to minimize the barriers to access food. And so that's really the advice I would give is to come and use our services if you need them.
If I can add to that, so when people call and are asking for help, they feel like they have to justify. They tell us about their story, about how they got there. They don't need to do that. But what I would say to that is that some of our most passionate and best donors are individuals that were down on their luck, that needed a food bank in their previous life, and then they've recovered, and now they're our biggest advocates.
That's great.
So what I would say to people calling, you don't have to tell us why you're in that situation. Yeah. We're here to help regardless. But when you do get back on your feet, think about the food bank, pay it forward.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what is your website, just so we can plug it?
So SanDiegoFoodBank.org.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. Anybody listen, that's where you can go, or 211.
Thank you.
Right?
Yep.
So kind of going along those lines, for people out there to understand just how big of an issue this is, right? If they're like, oh no, I'm embarrassed, or it's just me. Do you have any statistics on San Diego to share? Because I read some on your website. You're going to know it better than me, but I was pretty blown away at how many kids struggle with it, how many families, how many college students. That this is a real thing that's out there affecting a lot of people.
So I'll throw out a couple. I know Vanessa will have some. Vanessa sits on a lot of committees throughout the county.
Too many.
And they're always looking at these numbers.
Yeah.
But 1 in 3 right now in San Diego County is considered food insecure. I think the language they're using now is nutrition insecure. 1 in 3. So San Diego County, I think, is 3.3 million in population. So that's about a million people. So think about that. Food insecure, I think the definition of that is under 200% of the federal poverty level. So this would be, the numbers go all over the place depending on what's in your household, but for a family of 4, that would be a family making less than $53,000 they would be considered
Got it.
under that level, and food insecure. So food insecure meaning they're unable to provide 3 meals a day to either themselves or their families. So that's the need right now. That it was 1 in 4, I believe, and before that 1 in 7. So we're going in the wrong direction. Obviously, COVID has had a lot to do with the 1 in 3 number, but the problem out there is real. You know, we're serving nearly 600,000 people a month, but think about that million number, right? So we're still not there. We still have more people to feed. Any other statistics you want to add?
That's the newest number right there.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was, I don't know, it was eye-opening for me too to even see like college kids at like basically 50% of them are close to that number, and most of them are going to school full-time and working at least part-time.
Yeah.
So, you know, people taking a lot on their backs to get by.
Well, and let's talk about who we serve. I mean, we serve working families, right? Single or dual income families, seniors on fixed incomes, low income military families. So these, you know, often these are families that are working.
Yeah.
And when people think of the food bank, oftentimes, I know a lot of my friends and family would say, oh, you serve homeless. And that population is less than 10%. So it really is the working families that are taking advantage of these resources. And I think that was an eye-opener as well.
Yeah, when we came to the orientation, the meeting with you, it was, again, just kind of, I don't know, you don't know what you don't know until you get educated, but the number of military families that are getting support, which is kind of heartbreaking because, you know, I didn't choose to go that path, but I know a lot of them are out there defending my freedoms and things like that. To know their families are in a position to have to get food assistance is, you know, tough to settle with, but I'm glad that those services are there.
Right.
We're here.
We were serving about 30,000 military service members, active duty, retirees, veterans, and their families every month. And it is difficult. When you think about military spouses in particular, when you're moving from place to place, it's pretty difficult to hold down a job. And so for us, again, we are not going to pass judgment on anyone. And I know that there are different stories depending on who you talk to about what the need is and how things can improve. But for us, it's just a matter of getting the food resource out to these families.
Yeah.
And so we understand that it's difficult. We understand the cost of living in San Diego is high. We also know that the COLA doesn't change for military members if they live in San Diego or if they live in South Dakota. It's real, and for us, again, it's just about making sure they have those resources available.
That's great. So how about folks that want to help?
Yeah.
You know what I mean, that people get inspired, they want to, you know, get involved. What are your words of advice for them? Or
We look at this as a 3-legged stool, right? I mean, there are lots of ways to support the food bank, and especially now during COVID, and the community has been amazing. But volunteer. We have 25,000 volunteers that come through our warehouse every year. We need them. The work wouldn't continue without them. So you can volunteer, and that's individually or bring your family. We're happy to have you in our warehouse. Food donations, you can give. Our bread barrels are everywhere throughout the county, and we usually have them out there throughout the year. So look for our red barrels, food drives. We'll take that. You can donate directly to the food bank. If you have food in your truck, or give us a call and we'll help you with that. And then monetary donations. Of course, we'll take contributions. We can leverage the dollar into 5 meals. We have that kind of network. Our dollar goes a long way. So we're always happy to take that. And like we mentioned earlier, we purchased $16 million worth of food in the last 18 months. So that's where your dollar's going. We have very low overhead. 94 cents of every dollar goes to programs and services.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Because I know that's a big concern for a lot of people that make donations.
Absolutely.
Is to say how much of this dollar is actually going to get to the people I'm intending to impact.
And most nonprofits are happy at 80 cents, right? We're at 94 cents, so we run a pretty thin and lean and mean operation.
How many employees?
80.
80. That is lean and mean.
Yeah.
I saw that warehouse.
Yeah, it's a 100,000 square foot warehouse, 80 employees.
And that's just one of them.
I was about to say, then you have your North County one too, right?
Casey and I have gone to several other food banks. I won't name which ones they were, and
throughout the country,
and they say, they ask the same question. Well, how many staff members do you guys have? And anytime we give them the number, they're always double or more, and we're typically doing closer to more than what they're doing, or very close to it. And so they tell us, "Oh, please don't tell my boss what you guys are doing."
We have a funny story. And I won't say where we were, but we were at a food bank. And we were with a big group, and we were going to do a tour. And so we had I don't know, 20, 30 people in the lobby. Mm-hmm. And so everybody's going around introducing themselves. Well, several employees introduced themselves to other employees at that food bank. They didn't realize they worked together. So they had.
That's how big they were.
That's how big they were. So we're pretty lean and mean.
That's good. So what is anything exciting coming around the corner from the food bank, or anything you're working on now? Or
well, right now we're still trying to keep up with the increased demand. That is, as Casey mentioned, I mean, we're 20 million above where we were prior to COVID, and still growing. So that's number one, is to keep up with our mission and making sure that all of the programs that we currently have are going to be sustained throughout the rest of the year and in the coming years. But we do have a new program that we'll be launching this year, hopefully in the next month or two, and that's adding feminine hygiene products to the list of our supply chain. So very, very similar story to that of our Diaper Bank program. Feminine hygiene products are also not eligible reimbursement through CalFresh funding. And so we're going to be purchasing items and redistributing also through our diaper hubs. So same location, you'll be able to get diapers, feminine hygiene products, and food through those over 100 hub centers that we have. So we're looking to make that big switch in the next couple of months, which will be super exciting for us. Our Super Pantry program will continue at least through the end of this year. We're planning, and that's another one of those room discussions that we're going to have about what the Super Pantry program will look like. This was intended to just be a COVID program, but maybe it's something we look at for the near future, and what that looks like we still haven't talked about, but that's in the coming future for us, and sustaining again all of the programs that we have. There's some pretty spectacular programs that are helping so many families in San Diego, and you don't want to fix what's not broken.
Sure.
And so making sure that those stay tight and we continue to be efficient with those programs, I think, is key for us.
Yeah, our focus is to continue to meet the demand. Vanessa and I were here during the Great Recession, and we saw, again, there was a lag, several years for the economy and families to recover. We're expecting that this time as well with COVID. And so all of our plans for the future, the strategies that we're devising, the outlook is 2 to 3 years out. So we want to make sure we can keep this pace up for the next several years. And, of course, grow any programs that we need to grow. And then anything else exciting out there that I think the one thing I would add is we have a Blues Fest coming up. I'm not sure when this podcast is going to air, but Blues Fest on September 11th.
Yeah, it'll be out.
We have, great. We're a day down to Embarcadero North. Eight bands, great event, 4,000 to 5,000 people in attendance, our 11th annual event. And we're going to raise about 750,000 meals. That's why I mentioned that. So if this goes out to any of you blues lovers, come down and see us. It's a great time.
Excellent. So are you the keynote company that's behind it, organization that's behind the whole?
Yep.
Wow.
We're sponsoring the Blues Fest. Yeah. So again, 4,000 to 5,000 people. We that's been steady for the last 11 years. Some great bands. Larkin Poe is the headliner this year. So they have a big following. And it's a fun day.
Yeah.
And again, the most important thing is we're going to raise a lot of meals.
Yeah. Bring your food donations, bring your lawn chair, just lots of fun. Even for those that are not Blues Fest or Blues fans. I wasn't a Blues fan up until 11 years ago when we started this program. And it is so relaxing. I mean, just to be out on the bay, you have the boats passing you by, you have great music playing, you're out in the sunshine, and then to know that you're doing all of this for a great cause, it's a fun event.
Yeah.
Very
It's another way to get the word out.
Yeah.
It's another way to raise money, and most important, another way to buy food.
Yeah. Well, you guys run a great organization. I know you guys aren't going to take all the credit because you have a great leadership team and lots of partners and all that stuff. But
a great board.
Yeah, but I mean, I would say like constantly re-innovating, coming up with new ways, zigging and zagging. You know, I mean, the pandemic's an obvious one, but you know, just coming up with new ways to help people out. I think it's awesome. You guys are doing a killer job.
Thank you. Well, thank you to the community.
Yeah.
Right, we wouldn't have been able to respond without them. There's great community support. As we mentioned earlier, they came out, they volunteered during COVID, right? Got a little scary. We're worried about whether or not we'd have the volunteers to do that, but volunteers continued to come, and that was amazing. And then volunteers continued to support us monetarily. So thank you to the community. San Diego is awesome.
Yeah, it's a great place to be. I'll share a story that I like to share with people, you know, around, you know, food insecurities and things like that. But when I was a teacher, I had a student in my classroom, and I was teaching 4th grade, and we had this program at the elementary school where for the first like hour and a half block of school, they would go to levelized reading. So they'd all, like, the bell would ring and they'd go to a different classroom based on their level of reading, right? We had a lot of English language learners, and, you know, rather than trying to teach 5 different levels within the same homeroom, you know, and it was a great program. And so my students come back, and then we're about to go out for snack, and I get a phone call from one of the other teachers, and she says, "Hey, I think Jose may have, you know, eaten the kid's snack that was in his desk." So I said, "Okay, I'll talk to him before he goes out to snack." And she says, "Well, you know," I go, "Well, what was it?" She said, "Oh, it was a chocolate muffin, right?" So he comes up to me, and I go, "Jose, did you eat the snack that was in that desk?" And he's like, No, Mr. White, no." I go, "Jose, go look in the mirror real quick." And he's got chocolate all over his face and in his teeth and everything else, right? So it's like a funny story, but it's a very real story, right? Which it's a basic need. I mean, and whether you're an adult, a senior, you know, a kid, anything, if you don't have those basic needs met of food, shelter, feeling safe, protection, love, all those kinds of things, like, it's really tough to focus on anything else. So, you know, that's why we're really involved in this, is to really, you know, help make a difference with families and specifically kids that are, you know, struggling with hunger here in San Diego. And so we look forward to continuing a partnership. You know, we have a program here where every time we insure a new homeowner, we donate 50 meals through the food bank. We want to volunteer. We've got 3 sessions set up coming up, which is really neat. We got like 25 spots, so we're going to wrangle got a lot of great people here that are going to head on down there, and hopefully we behave ourselves and break a sweat a little bit. Make sure we know when you're there. We want to come down and see you. That would be awesome. So we're really excited and really impressed, and you guys are doing an amazing thing, and appreciate you guys being here. So more conversations to come, and hopefully we can all make a difference together. So thank you guys.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So much.
Awesome.